Hello and welcome to another product video breakdown from Longhorn Tactical. This isn't a product video breakdown. This is an off-the-cuff product comparison breakdown from Longhorn Tactical. Today we will be comparing two of the latest tactical flashlights that have come out from Olight and Fenix respectively.
Hey y'all, take this time to like and subscribe to the Longhorn Tactical YouTube channel. Thanks.
For Olight, it is the Warrior 3S. The improved new version of the Warrior 3 with the proximity sensor and the nubbier, less pronounced bezel, and the Fenix TK20R v2.0, the second version of Fenix's TK20R. Let's start right from the beginning. Names. Names are very important. For instance, the Warrior 3S. I like to say Olight gets the point here in the naming category, because by adding S at the end, which is something reminiscent that a lot of car manufacturers do, actually, what does it mean when they do it? It usually means like one level above. For instance, you have car manufacturers used to do this where they would have just the standard entry-level model, and then they would have like a GT, which stands for Grand Touring, and they would have like some other, like G, which for general. Then S usually meant superior, or super, seismic, superb. Either way. Also, it's named Warrior, which is very combative, masculine. Something the proponents of Olight, their fanboys, desperately want to associate with. So I think they played their cards right, naming it the Warrior 3S. On the other hand, Fenix, much like KNICK, another brand which I feature often on this channel, very boring with their nomenclature, their naming structure. They, with seemingly random assortment of alphanumerics, they'll just pick out a couple letters, and then some numbers. Like, what does TK even stand for? I know TK normally is the designation for Fenix's tactical flashlights, so that covers the T. What does the K stand for? Unless they really don't know how to spell tactical. Could be TAK, tickle. So TK20R v2.0 versus Warrior 3S, name goes to the Warrior 3S. Because they're flashlights, we're gonna have to talk about max brightness. Olight Warrior 3S, the maximum brightness is 2,300 lumens. The TK20R v2.0 is 3,000 lumen. The TK20R v2.0 is greater than that of the Warrior 3S. So I suppose that gives it a point. However, we know that 3,000 is definitely greater than 2,300, which is why the TK20R v2.0 wins this one. Which brings me to peak beam intensity. The TK20R v2.0 has a peak beam intensity of 56,600 candela. Should always include significant units. And then the Warrior 3S has a peak beam intensity of 23,000 candela. And once again, the TK20R v2.0 has significantly more, 33,600. Yes, 33,600 candela more than the Warrior 3S. From that we can conclude that the beam's hotspot definitely goes further because the beam is more concentrated in the center. The Olight Warrior 3S uses a TIR lens, total internal reflective optic, which is a type of lens design where you look at it head on, it looks as if it's flat and you're just sort of looking at like a curved surface. Really, these lenses are like a solid piece of usually acrylic, sometimes glass, that they shape specifically with certain curvatures and angles to create a light disbursement pattern that they specifically engineer towards. Whereas the Fenix TK20R v2.0 has a more traditional reflective polished reflector with a single pane of glass in front. You probably have a far more concentrated beam for the TK20R, thus yielding more candela, higher beam intensity, whereas the Warrior 3S has the lens basically dictates exactly what kind of light pattern beam they were going for. The next point of contention then would be beam throw. The Fenix TK20R v2.0 has a maximum beam throw of 519 yards. Whereas the Olight Warrior 3S has a max beam throw of 328 yards, which is like 100 and that can't be right. A little under 200 yards or so. More in favor of the TK, so I guess I should just give it like 200 points. We'll call it 11. Just imagine that's 200 points more. Beam throw is something that is important to people. This is something that I've always wondered, having started working at this company, because you don't really think in terms of distance other than, I suppose spatially, I mean. And I suppose that's the case for the average individual. If you're somebody that's an active surveyor, I can imagine why that would be really, really important. You're probably the exception to the rule, where you do think often in terms of very specific set amounts of distances. Beam throw was always one of those things where I've thought, unless you're in a very particularly specialized industry, such as like active search and rescue, like Coast Guard, or the other example we often use here is for hunters. Even then, I always wondered for hunters if that really mattered, because the last thing you want to do is, let's say you suspect a deer is about 200 yards away and you do this at it, like, wouldn't it run, right? Wouldn't it run away? So I don't know, I never truly understood why I was told. I was always taught this, like, oh, like beam throw is really important for hunters. But almost every instance or every like video I see, like of hunters, they are so good at not revealing themselves to their quarry. They do all these things to make sure that the animals don't spot them. The last thing I think any hunter does is like, yep, I'm really glad I have this flashlight that has a beam that goes out to 300 yards. And I used it to verify that, oh nope, the animal's running away now. So yeah, never really understood why we kept saying that it's good for hunters. But I suppose if you do need that extra 200 yards of beam, the Fenix TK20R v2.0 wins this category. Both of them, fortunately, come with 5,000 milliamp batteries. 21700 batteries to be specific. But not really, because both of them have been modified. This one has a 21700 battery that has a protective circuit on top, which converts it to a button top. The Olight Warrior 3S, on the other hand, has a custom 21700 battery, also with a little layer of circuitry on top, which converts the top end to have both positive and negative. However, both of them are rated at 5,000 milliamps, so I guess it's a tie. Up next is rechargeability. The Warrior 3S from Olight comes with Olight's customary MCC3 magnetic charging cable. One side has a USB-A, which can be plugged into a USB power source, and the other end, the round end, because it's magnetic, snaps onto the rear of the flashlight, which is very convenient, I will say. The only issue is that it is proprietary. On the other hand, the Fenix TK20R v2.0 is USB-C rechargeable and comes with a USB-C cable. The charging port is hidden here in the middle. By unscrewing this middle portion, you expose the USB-C charging port, and you plug the USB-C cable into the charging port there. And that's how you charge both flashlights. So a point goes to the Fenix TK20R v2.0 for universality. It's actually in the name, Universal Serial Bus, because many electronic devices nowadays use USB-C cables. On the other hand, the Olight MCC3 gets a point because it is magnetic, and there is something very satisfying about this. See, this was really satisfying during the era of micro USB. Micro USB, which also is unidirectional, so it has to be done a certain way, or else it didn't go in. During that era, this was very satisfying. However, USB-C also addressed that issue, essentially, by creating it to where it doesn't matter of the orientation of how it's plugged in. That being said, proprietary still, which is why it's not perfect. It's an imperfect but very stylish and nice way of charging. On the other hand, if you lose it or if Fido chews through it, then you have to get this again. For the Fenix TK20R v2.0, you have a turbo mode of 3000 lumen, you have a high mode of 1000 lumen, a mid mode of 350 lumen, a low mode of 150 lumen, and then a ultra low mode of 30 lumen. And now for the Warrior 3S, you have a turbo mode of 2300 lumen, a high mode of 800 lumen, a mid mode of 200 lumen, a low mode of 15 lumen, and then a ultra low mode of 1 lumen. So, I think this answers pretty definitively the Fenix TK20R v2.0 is greater in every regard for all 5 modes than the Warrior 3S, so I'll give it 5 points. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Hopefully that worked. I can't really see the screen. There's too much glare from the lighting. Obviously, this is a terrible example of how to do anything really. It's bad logic, it's bad thinking. Yes. So I'm going to give you my rationale behind the brightness modes. I have been a firm believer that 3 brightness modes is fairly good. Anything more than that seems rather superfluous, at least for me. Options are good. Options tend to... No, I'm forcing it. Options are pointless. You should know exactly what you want. There usually is a definite ideal ground. At least that's the lesson I learned from the Goldilocks and the 3 Bears stories. I'm fairly certain that's the moral of that story. For flashlights, if I had it my way, you would have the brightest mode, right? The show-off piece. Look at how great it is. And then you have the one you actually use, which is somewhere in the middle. And then you have an ultra low mode, which is the just in case, or you don't want to disturb others, or maybe you just drop something on the ground. It's already really dark, so even the tiniest amount of light is sufficient to help provide enough contrast to help you find what you need. So I give a point to the Olight for having moonlight mode, because I think having the genuine 1 lumen moonlight mode is very important. On the other hand, I know I gave a bunch to the 20R for the sake of the joke, so I've lost track. But this still gets the 1 point for having the brighter 3000 mode. On the other hand, the true 1 lumen moonlight mode for the Warrior 3S is very useful, I believe. That's why I gave it a point. Did I give it a point? I'll give you another couple just to be safe. Our Olight fans will be very, very distraught. As for the middle modes, they're roughly equivalent, 1000 or 800, 350 or 200. They will function fairly similarly and provide you like that sort of standard lighting you actually need for most situations. As far as runtimes go, the 1 lumen ultra low obviously lasts far longer than the 15 lumen ultra low, both operating with the 5000 milliamp battery. So I guess that's another point for you. Up next is build quality and durability. The TK20R v2.0 is rated IP68 waterproof, whereas the Olight Warrior 3S is rated IPX8. Like so. IP stands for ingress protection. The first number has to do with dust or particulates. The second number has to do with water and moisture. So once again, this was something that I found particularly puzzling after beginning my work here at Longhorn Tactical, which is I didn't know companies were allowed to just say like, we're not gonna tell you, or we don't care. I didn't know that was a thing. It's like if a car company were to publish crash tests and they said, yes, it has a 4 out of 5 from the front, 3 out of 5 from the side, and you're never gonna get hit from the back, so we didn't bother testing the rear crash. I mean, that's a bit of a stretch because I feel like that's something they're required to do with all of the vehicles because it's really important. You know, automobile accidents and collisions can really seriously harm somebody. So I think that's something that's regulatory and they're forced to do. But it goes kind of similar along a similar vein, whereas I didn't know they were just allowed to eschew some of their reporting for dust ingress, because I can't help but feel that it's kind of important, especially for flashlight companies that make really nice ones like this that I imagine professionals would use. They could possibly care. It's not like they're always going to work in the cleanliest of environments without any dust or particulates, like sand, anything really. So I don't know. I've always wondered, because we have a couple of lights from all the different brands that will sometimes have this, and they only seem to care about moisture, never about dust. So possibly, as far as I'm concerned, because they don't tell you, the Warrior 3S could be absolutely devastated by a sandstorm. Whereas with the TK20R v2.0, you're fairly safe. However, both of them, more importantly, are waterproof, which I think is the important lesson here. So we'll just give them 8 points each. So 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 6, 7, 8. And now it's time for Ted's thoughts. So Ted, out of the Fenix TK20R v2.0 and the Warrior 3S, currently the score is at 16 for the Warrior 3S and 26 for the TK20R v2.0. Which one is your favorite?
My favorite of the two was the TK20R. It came in with more lumens for just a few more dollars, but it also had a greater throw. So the candela rate was almost twice as much as the Warrior 3S was.
Twice as much, so 2 more.
Yep. So
I've been very liberal with my points.
It also came with the strobe mode with more lumens. So with that and the brighter candela, it makes for a better self-defense weapon.
Cool, thank you. That was Ted's thoughts. He's our newest member on the marketing team. Cool, thank you, Ted. Wait, you're not Ted. Now it's time for Kelly's thoughts. Everyone misses her more than me, you
beautiful individuals.
So, Warrior 3S from Olight and the TK20R v2.0 from Fenix. Currently, the score, Kelly, resides at 17 for the Olight and 30 for the TK20R v2.0. Which one is your favorite out of these two?
I would go...
And why?
I will go with the TK20R.
Nope, you won't. Ted chose that one already, Kelly. You're not very good at this.
Pick the Warrior?
Yes.
I'll go with the Warrior 3S.
Why, Kelly? That's a great choice. And give it 2 points for that.
Because it's a nice size. You got a nice button, the headlights, and then there's a nice little blue ring.
Blue ring.
There you go.
Yep, thank you, Kelly. That was great. I need to include a very brief interjection here because Ted made a very tiny and understandable mistake because as somebody that works at a company that distributes flashlights, he looks through marketing materials, documentations, and spec sheets of thousands of flashlights every day. Bit of an exaggeration, more like 5 or 6. Either way, he said that the TK20R v2.0 has a strobe light, which indeed it does. However, the Warrior 3S also has a strobe light. I made the same mistake as him last time and people got very crossed with me, especially the Olight fans. They were like, we have a strobe light too. It's as if I besmirched their honor or something. So you hold down the power button and tap the side button once. Why is it not working? There we go. And the Warrior 3S, as you can see, also has a strobe light, so I suppose I should dock a point, but I don't know how to do that on this app. This was it was free, so I'll just give the Olight another point as well. Both of them feature a strobe light, although I suppose for the Warrior 3S you have to program it, which is not as convenient as having a dedicated strobe light button, for instance on the TK20R v2.0. However, I honestly err on the side of the Warrior 3S in this regard, so I'll give it another point. Because I would rather have the ability to decide what my button does. I want a tool with less buttons. If I had to choose a flashlight, and it was between a flashlight that had 12 buttons that all did unique things versus one flashlight that had 1 button and only turned on and off, I prefer less. I think less buttons is better. In that situation, 2 buttons on the tail cap, only 1, and then this, I get to choose the function of what it does, either turbo or either strobe. I think this is smarter. So it gives me the ability to choose what the 1 button does, as opposed to giving me, it's always there, which some people prefer. If you prefer not having to think about it or programming it, and it's just always small button is strobe, TK20R v2.0 is for you, whereas I actually prefer the ability to control and then have less buttons overall. Seems neater and cleaner in that regard. Which brings me to the conclusion of the comparison between the Fenix TK20R v2.0 and the Olight Warrior 3S. Before we conclude, just a brief disbursement of points for the random little knickknacks they have. Lanyard, no lanyard. Both come with holsters. What have I done? Oh, okay. Some coloration, all black, metal tail switch, rubber silicone tail switch, can eventually wear, proximity sensor, no proximity sensor. I'll explain my rationale for giving a point to both in that regard. I suppose some people are dullards and just leave things on and then stick it in their backpack and go, I can't believe the company would do such a heinous, miserly thing as keeping me in charge of being responsible with my own high-powered, high-lumen device. Oh, how it burned down my house, and now I demand they make changes so that I must be less responsible. I've never run into that situation before, mostly because I had very strict tiger parents growing up. So, I mean, I double-check that the doors are locked, make sure the oven's not on. I've never left the house and thought, did I leave the garage door open? I know the garage door is closed. I know. So the inclusion of a proximity sensor is nice, and if you need it, that's a plus. I prefer not being babysat. Both come with a pocket clip, however, unidirectional, bidirectional, so 1, 1, 2. Battery level indicator is just a single LED, red, yellow, green. This one is quad LED, so slightly nicer. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4. And finally, it comes down to price point. Now, both of these lights are priced very similarly. I believe the TK20R v2.0 is only $5 more. So we'll just give it 5 points. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I hope nobody really takes this system seriously. Clearly this has been a joke the entire time, and that people who do rankings via point system and try to quantize subjective notions are fools and shouldn't be trusted. And then stylistically speaking, because I have now worked at a flashlight distributor for a couple of years, for some reason, whenever I see the Warrior 3S, I imagine this next to other objects in like a really picturesque Instagram EDC post, like Warrior 3S, fancy pocket knife, stopwatch, paracord nonsense, one of those stabby pens that aren't really a pen, fancy carbon fiber wallet. Whereas the TK20R v2.0 is very unassuming, and if I had to create the tier above it classification would be tool, whereas this would be gadget, which once again is purely subjective. So this is definitely more stylish. If I had to pick one based purely off of desire, it would be the Warrior 3S. If I had to pick one based purely off of need, it would be the TK20R v2.0. That concludes the product comparison breakdown of the Fenix TK20R v2.0 and the Olight Warrior 3S. If you have enjoyed this video, or think I am a big dumb fart, please leave a comment or suggestion below. To stay up to date on future product releases from brands such as Fenix, KNICK, Olight, and more, sales announcements, and all things flashlight related, please consider subscribing to the Longhorn Tactical YouTube channel. And thank you.